Welcome back to the channel. Writing a novel. Yeah, so this is my process. And I have made that sound so incredibly terrifying to myself.
Sometimes there's the thought, oh my God, I've got to commit to a whole book here. And that is where you kind of lose the love. And if you lose the love, you're going to...
Your novel should live with you at all times. Every day is art, make art every day. When you transcribe your writing, it's not transcribing. At least it shouldn't be. It's a second draft. That's how it stays fun. And I wanted to introduce you to this new, exciting little chapter of it all. This is the zettelkasten. Let's have some fun.
I know some of you have expressed curiosity as I share my process of, going from writing lots of short stories and making all my art to embarking on a full-fledged novel.
So I've got my bag with me here, and it's got some index cards in it.
I think, and I had a wonderful conversation with a dear friend of mine who is an author, and he was talking about make sure you love the process. Don't be too quick to get out of this stage, because it can be daunting. Sometimes there's the thought, oh my God, I've got to commit to a whole book here. And that is where you kind of lose the love. And if you lose the love, you're going to miss out on the important parts of the process.
I want to come back from this walk with at least 2 index cards written out with an idea that'll be stored. So I'm kind of forcing it today because I want to cultivate a new habit so that I have this at the ready. Because when I grew up, my way of expressing and understanding the world was from going into my room and drawing. And eventually I had to get over that shit to be an actor, because I had to go on stage and extrovert and all of that. But I still find solace in my own space when I'm writing or drawing.
I'm paraphrasing, but one of the things he shared, and this is, I'm sure, different for everyone, but I share it here because it gave me a lot to think about in a very helpful way. And I thought, maybe the same will be with you, dear viewer, which is that this is the point where you get to brainstorm, be very creative, come up with things out of thin air. A sense of play is a good thing. And you're going to start finding bits and pieces of the character and the plot. And then you're going to start putting those down, and you're going to get this order of what to do. And then you're going to set out to make that work and write the novel. And that's where things are going to need to start fitting into place. And that will be the much more structured part of the process. This is kind of the fun part. So, I've been writing lots of different ideas for stories. And what I mean is not a lot of different ideas for a story. I've been writing a lot of different stories. I've got this, I just started another legal pad. I finished one. I mean, this is how much I've been writing, but I've really been wanting to just get into the physical writing part. And then you're wondering, well, what do I do after that? Me, as someone who is doing all this handwriting, I'm going to then transcribe that, which I have been doing. I'm almost done transcribing a whole other section. It is not as tedious as I thought, because as I'm scrawling these things down, just so I can catch my thoughts, they tend to not be ideal. So then when I'm transcribing and I'm reading that again, oh, that doesn't sound quite right. And then I rewrite it, and then that sets me writing more while I'm typing. So I find that as I'm transcribing, it is the typing stage, but I've got a huge jumping off point, because, and I will just keep using this line from Quentin Tarantino, that the pen is the antenna to God. And I do feel that I have more access to the muses if I handwrite. I write a lot with typing, but I feel that these ideas just kind of flow. That's how I feel for now, but I've committed to it. Look what I just got in the mail. A whole other batch of legal pads, and I want want you to check this out. Look at this. This is what I've been using. These are longer. Never even knew that, but I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just going to be sharing more of these things, the little challenges, the little hang-ups, the little victories.
Some things occur to me lately that we all know that life is fleeting, but it's pretty wild when as events happen, and then also meditating on my long gone best friend's birthday. Boy, it's another thing when you actually feel it. It's one thing to know it, but just feeling it, how quickly it can happen. So that just, yeah, it makes you really want to just try to get your affairs in order, have as much of them in order as possible, and do the things that you're meant to do. So it's been a wild month. The idea of going into, so it's been a wild couple of months. The idea of deciding I need to do a novel, and how much that has actually kind of changed my outlook on everything, including myself and the world and Ghost in the Gaslight, and my attitude towards writing and stories. It's gone from a constant sense of play with lots of deadlines involved to something very big and sprawling and epic. And I am constantly trying to demystify the process. So sometimes that freaks me out, and sometimes I am able to remind myself, this is it. This is what it all comes down to. You are embarking on something which is going to take a lot of mental exercises, future planning, and you'll be able to go really deep into yourself, why you do what you do, and you're going to be able to find a story, you're going to go into a character, all these, it's just going to be, yeah, this is a journey. So this right here is a zettelkasten, and this is, maybe one of the oldest and most competent ways that we categorize it. It's a categorizing system, and it is a great way for writers and authors to make sense of all the crazy places, not only that their mind goes, but where their memory goes. We've got a huge storage capacity here, and those of you who are already writers and authors, you know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know if you're going to learn anything from here. And I'm going to do my best to explain based on what I've been finding. I still have a lot to learn, but it is making a lot of sense, because my good friend, the author, was telling me that there is going to be a bit of organization involved, and you've got to be able to enjoy it. And if you're going to take off walking, make sure you write. And he was saying, write every day. I know, we all know that. Dancers know, dance every day. Actors know, act every day. Artists, painters, etc. Writers, of course, write every day. But even though I've been using these, these legal pads and everything, and writing a lot, sometimes you almost have to schedule, a time to sit down and write this. And sometimes I'm like, running back and forth, doing a lot of different things. And so it is a stretch sometimes for me to mentally get over to this desk, sit down and just write. But then there's also, if there's a more portable way to do it. And so I have this little journal, which is actually getting full. I only recently started using it for writing ideas for the novel. But I think there's another way. Before I get to that, I do want to say that, when I'm transcribing everything, I'm using Scrivener, which is great. I love it. And I'm still learning that a bit. But as I was starting to put files together, I started to forget where I'm putting them. And then I realized I had gotten this. I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago when I had this other idea to make a project that was actually not very related to Ghost in the Gaslight, but it involved writing a book and it involved storing a lot of stuff and being able to categorize it. And I don't know why I was like intrigued by this categorization. I think I was more intrigued by the categorization process than I was in the actual writing, but that's because I'm always just writing anyway. Anyway, I am so happy that my past self, I think, was incommunicado with my current self, unbeknownst to my then current self, because I had this and I immediately started utilizing it. So what the hell is this, you're asking, for those of you who don't know? So this is a shoebox. No, it's not. As you can see, there's a filing system that I've put in here, and I've got all these, alphabet dividers, and then I've got index cards. I've got all these double-sided blank index cards. And I'm going to be implementing a system where I try to carry some with me all the time. Because the more I write, and those of you who just write all the time, you know this, you're getting ideas constantly. And this is what would happen to me every October when I would do my Inktobers. And by the way, if you want to check out my Substack, I am sharing my daily Inktobers, which was when I would write and draw an illustrated ghost story every single day and post it for the month of October. So I'm doing a retrospective on those on my Substack in the notes section, not in the posts section. The notes are like the Twitter of Substack, the x.com of Substack, where it's like kind of tumble blogging, microblogging. And the point is as I would do all of that, I would just get in this zone of writing. And I was in this zone of drawing. My inking just was taking off. My writing was taking off. Write every day, draw every day. Every day is art, make art every day. Going back to how difficult it is to just, be able to get to a place with that legal pad and write. But I find when I would do it, I would be catching my thoughts. Well, now what I can do is I can basically keep a stack of index cards with me, and then I, keep a pen. And then as an idea comes up, maybe in a conversation, I can write that down. So then, I get home and then I expand on it. I write it out. Maybe it's 5 different index cards. I write them, I date them. I put like the other day, I was taking a walk and the intention was to do what my friend was saying, go for a walk and write when you walk. Like, it's not just a walk, you're actually writing, which was such a great concept. So I tried that. It wasn't quite happening. Maybe I need to do it more, but I passed by these people and they were talking rather loudly. However, one of them, they were like a bit older, and one of them was a guy, he had like long, bright silver hair and a ponytail, but he was very boisterous and he kept he was laughing. It was very disarming. But then he was talking about yellow jackets, and this is what I love about, being in the country, is all the conversations we all have. But he was talking about yellow jackets. For those of you who don't know, it's a type of wasp. I grew up with them. He was talking about how they got into some fermented cider, I believe, and then they were drunk. And we basically had to get out of there. That's kind of what he said. And I was thinking of that, and then I just had this whole idea. It sent me on this tangent of wasps and drunk people, drunk wasps, and And then I wrote that down, and then I kind of bookmarked it because this is new. I don't have a way of going and finding that page. And then I was writing that in my Evernote. I have Evernote and Scrivener. But then I was like, how am I going to file this up? Wait a minute. Why am I thinking of that right now? because I was already warned that that is a very frustrating way to categorize things by doing them on your computer. And where was I warned that? Oh, it was when I was researching zettelkastens. And I was reading this book, The Anti-Net Zettelkasten, which is by Scott Schepper. I'll maybe link that in the description. Book was kind of dense, honestly. But now that I'm actually writing a novel and I'm feeling the full-on need and I'm seeing the point of it, now it's making sense to me. So the Anti-Net Zettelkasten. Anti-net. You're not using the internet, you're not using your laptop, whatever. Instead, you're doing things, thankfully, the old-fashioned way. I don't know about you, but in this age of artificial intelligence, while it is miraculous and it does make our lives easier in many ways, I'm learning it, but how wonderful is it to learn that there are just ways that the ancestors used that still beat the hyper-modern, breakneck technological pace of today. How great is that when you find that? So this is one of those things. Manually recording it, and then, so I did like 2 index cards, for instance. I put a Y for Yellow Jacket, and then I wrote down what I told you about the story, and then I wrote at the end W C Wasp, which will be under W. So it's just about kind of mapping where my mind is going to go. That might send me somewhere else, and I'm going to put that on another flashcard, and I'm going to write on that. But there's another way of using the other side of flashcard. It's a whole system. So because the way this novel's going, I'm going to be doing a lot of recall, and I can't. Once I'm done with the exercises that I'm doing, like I was basically writing just inciting incidences, using maybe the top 10 inciting incidences, and just setting a timer for 15 minutes and writing a plot from that particular inciting incident. Then transcribing it, and which I do want to say, one thing I'm finding, when you transcribe your writing, it's not transcribing, at least it shouldn't be. It's a second draft. That's how it stays fun. And what I would like to do with this is really just get a more fast and loose way of getting my work done, not relying on being in a certain place. It's a very beautiful and very romantic concept that I'm chasing, and I'll tell you what I mean. I believe that, and this is all theoretical, but I think this is part of why I need to do this, because of what a challenge it would be to do this, which is your novel should live with you at all times. And I've got to find a way to access it at all times. I've got to find a way to make sure that as many moments as possible in my day-to-day life are candidates to grab the ideal instincts that the muse sends me. I want to see how this goes. Obviously, if I'm waking up in the middle of the night coming up with something, that might not be an ideal way to live. But I want to be able to exploit as much of my life as possible, because we all get busy, we all have lives, and I want to make sure that I can utilize as much of the crazy moments and the mundane moments to get the best ideas. If I can do that in this beginning stage, I think that is going to give me the most dividends. So that's kind of the exercise with this zettelkasten and these cards. Okay, so little update. I had an idea, and it was actually a thought that has been trickling in and out of my mind all day. And I kept kind of thinking about it. I'd connect it to another thought. Well, I stopped. I just found a spot. I wanted a bench, but it was kind of important that I didn't have a bench so I could kind of make do. For instance, I hate when I have to write on a paper or a card and I don't have a flat surface. So I kind of had to get creative. And I was able to write this thought down on this card. I turned it over and was able to explore it. Now, if the thought kept going, I would have probably stopped it there and then said, like, come up with a title for the next card so that I know what to look it up under. And then I would, at the end of this card, write C, possession, you know, which would be a P. So then I would then know, where did this thought go? And I could follow my mind back. So that's basically, you know, the baby steps of this zettelkasten thing. Watch, I'm going to learn so much and go, oh man, I needed to do this, that, and the other thing. But right now, I'm liking it. So I have one card down. All right, guys, look what I found. A bench. I have gotten my reward, and it was funny. Right before it happened, I got another thing I wanted to write down. This is a good one. Okay, so I did it. And this was a doozy. And I wrote a bit longer, which is exactly what I thought would happen. And I think if I can just get used to carrying this with me, a whole lot more very personal additions to my research. And this just made things much more exciting because I was not looking forward to the idea of, I mean, I like Scrivener, I like what it's about, but I didn't want to spend even more time on the computer. So this will take me out. I can basically just schedule a trip and it'll be more about the pen and the cards. But right now I've got a set of possibilities and I'm really excited about the categorization, where my mind is going to take me now that I am paying attention to it in a whole new way. I think there's a part of it that I can already feel wants to come out and play. So this is I think this is a really cool system. It's part of why I wanted to put it on here and document this as it's happening. It's definitely for real. And I think that it is a much more healthy way to catalog and store your stuff rather than sitting in one place and typing and being in a laptop, you know, or a computer and all of that. I think that this feels more like life happening. And yeah, really excited. Anyway, thanks for another great walk here. And anyway, guys, thanks for tagging along, and 400 subscribers. I'm so excited. Thanks for helping me reach this milestone. If you haven't subscribed, I would love to count you as 401. That would be awesome. 402, 410, that would be wonderful. And if you haven't liked this video, I really appreciate that. That always helps too. It helps the algorithm. It's your good deed for the day, helping out an artist like me. All right, well, I will see you on the next one, which is right here. Take care. Yeah, pretty exciting. That's the zettelkasten system that I'm working on right now. And of course, that'll be developing, I'm sure, maybe by the time of the next video where I update you on this, I'll have even more on this and I'll be able to report on that. So anyway, thanks for another great walk. If you like this video, I think you'll like this one.